Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Coffee Break with Dion and Jim. I'm Dion, and this is my buddy Jim.
What's up?
So today, first of all, happy Wednesday to everyone, such as it is. It's going to be a beautiful day today, at least here in Northwest Indiana. Very, very warm. It's going to be excellent riding weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that, you worked all night and you're going to have to sleep for most of the day.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, just woke up, so I am ready and prepared to enjoy the rest of the day. So, yeah. Before you guys are witness to a crime on camera, we're gonna move on. Look, we constantly hear how there is an incessant battle for the soul of America, and gun control is both necessary but our patriotic duty. If you aren't for gun control, you're anti-American or some stupid shit like that. The bottom line is, in 1972, although the iteration goes back earlier, the actual formation of the ATF, what's commonly referred to as the ATF, it's actually BATFE, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, came about. Now, I think most people can agree, most people can agree that it's grown beyond its original intentions to the level of, to some people, outright tyranny. I'm going to attempt to play devil's advocate and say, okay, so the ATF exists, at least for now. Not a whole lot we can do about it in the moment, but isn't some degree of gun control necessary? Are there people that should not have access to firearms? Let's start with that.
Okay, so should some people not have firearms? Yeah, absolutely. There are some people who shouldn't.
Okay.
But that being said, who makes that call?
That's a good question.
And where does it stop? Where is the line?
Right. So there are, okay, so let's look at it this way. There are some states where if you're convicted of a felony, any felony, you lose the right to vote. Other states, if it's a nonviolent felony, you can still possess a firearm. Other states, if you are convicted of a felony, you serve your time, when you're released, you can vote again. There are tons of different laws across all different states.
Well, I mean, I know this is about the ATF, but let's touch on that for a second. Let's talk about that. Okay, so you commit a felony.
Yeah.
You can't vote. Well, why stop there? Why not just yank their citizenship? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Am I pro-felon? No, absolutely not.
Right.
But, voting is one of those inalienable human rights.
Yeah, it is. And that point has been made, and I promise you, it does tie in.
And okay, you commit a felony, you can't vote, but you can get into this country illegally, not be a citizen, and vote.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I digress.
Yeah, but I do see what you're saying, especially recently. I mean, it's beyond the ridiculous at this point to see the selective enforcement of rules, repercussions, things like that. But my question to you is, do you, and obviously this is an opinion-based show. That's what we're what we're about. But if you commit whatever crime, you do your time, released, should you be then allowed to vote again?
Well, I don't think you should have lost your right to vote in the first place.
Okay. So you don't think getting a felony should preclude you from being able to vote?
No.
Okay.
No. If you're still an American citizen, you should still vote for who's in charge.
Okay. All right. So then, do you believe that conviction of a felony should preclude your right to protect yourself?
My personal opinion?
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay. Okay.
You know, if you take a gun and you murder somebody,
right,
that's probably a good indication you shouldn't have a gun.
Okay. Okay. My argument, again, for those of you not familiar with the show, I just try to play devil's advocate and present the other side the best I'm able, regardless of my personal views. But the counterpoint to that isn't the entire purpose of whatever penalty we're exercising on someone to pay their price back to society. And if they're still such a danger, shouldn't they still be in prison?
Well, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
But we know how the justice system works.
We do.
You know,
but if we had a properly functioning justice system, I think a lot of these rules, regulations, and all this other garbage wouldn't be necessary.
Well, if
we have an imperfect system.
If my aunt had a dick, it'd be my uncle. You know?
Hey, man, it's 2024. Nothing saying. I can't. Anyway, so
I set you up for that.
You did. Anyway, so
what I'm saying is if a person exhibits a pattern, you know, a proclivity for, you know, for example, murder,
right?
You know, then I could see, maybe you shouldn't have something.
Okay, but what is the line, right? What is the line that needs to be crossed before you remove someone's right to defend themselves? I'm gonna put it this way, right? There are certain crimes that are considered felonies. For example, in Louisiana now, criminal damage to a coin-operated vending machine.
Oh, you're still on that?
Dude, it matters. Is a felony, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now it is. I don't think spraying freaking salt water in a Coke machine should preclude you from the ability to defend yourself.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That is exactly what I'm saying. That does not, you know,
it doesn't have anything to do.
That does not that doesn't exhibit a proclivity for violence.
Right. So then it becomes, okay, so violent felons are the ones that are prohibited, right? My concern when we start prohibiting anyone, well, then you get loopholes in the law and you get lawfare and you get the ability to, you know, red flag laws and all this other crap.
All right. So if we want to play that game,
okay.
If it's, well, either, you know, we set these rules and we have loopholes and people that, you know, can manipulate the system, or we just, you know, give everybody their constitutionally protected right.
Right.
Well, the answer to me is simple.
Okay.
We give them the constitutionally protected right.
Okay. So in your mind, the ideal scenario, right, is shall not be infringed, as the founding fathers made it.
Shall not be infringed. Because I'll tell you what, there's obvious words. Words are failing me today.
Yeah, well, I mean, you worked on
There's
that.
there's obvious exceptions. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Obvious exceptions.
Okay.
But for the most part, I believe that people are a lot less likely to shoot you if they think you can shoot them.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because they have found that states and municipalities that have enacted carry laws have found a significant decrease in violent crime because victims being able to shoot back tends to
decide they don't want to be victims.
Right. It tends to reduce the predatory behavior. Yeah. Which is why, and I've cited this statistic often, there are, 350 million firearms in the United States. If lawful gun owners were the problem, you know it. You'd absolutely freaking know it. But let's talk about this agency, right? And once again, BATFE, commonly known as the ATF. First of all, the simple idea that we need an agency overseeing what's right and what's wrong and what's allowed and what's not is kind of repugnant to the entire idea of the Second Amendment. But if we say, okay, well, there have to be some exceptions, right? Okay, so like C4 is, quote, military grade explosive, right? Okay, so should C4 be restricted from the average person? And we're getting into semantics, but I'm trying to give a good example, right? Like radioactive materials, things like this.
Well, let's
nuclear weapons.
Let's take a step back here.
Okay.
All right. The ATF is part of the executive branch, right?
I'm not entirely. I know it's now it's like under the Treasury Department, which I think is part of the executive branch.
Yeah. They execute the laws.
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing.
No, it's not.
All these regulations and interpretations and rules, notice nowhere did I say the word law.
Exactly, because they cannot create laws.
Right. But they make rules and regulations and interpretations and descriptions and definitions and all of that and enforce them as law.
Right, which is
and
in and of itself
there is the problem.
Right.
That is the problem. They're essentially making laws without the benefit of due process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
nobody has voted on them. Nobody has brought them as a bill for consideration. They just wake up one day and decide, you know what? Today, this is a prohibited item.
Okay.
And you'll notice you very rarely, if ever, hear anything ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, right?
Right.
When was the last time you heard of them making any regulation, rule, interpretation, definition, or anything about alcohol or tobacco?
Right. No, that's a fair point.
I'm not saying it's never happened.
Right.
But they focus on that last letter heavily.
They do.
And while we're talking about alcohol, hey, who remembers Prohibition?
Right.
How did that work out?
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, in my journalism class, we had to write an editorial letter.
Okay.
Letter to the editor.
Yep.
About gun control.
Okay.
So in high school, this was 1990.
Yeah.
90, maybe 91. When I took that class, I wrote a letter to the editor about gun control and why I thought it was pointless.
Okay.
And a bad idea. And as an example, I cited prohibition.
Okay.
So prohibition, alcohol is illegal.
Yep.
It was one of the most violent and crime-ridden times in our history.
Yes. Yes, it was.
You know, criminals got rich. Gangsters were, you know, it was the golden age
Right.
of the traditional gangster.
Oh, yeah.
With the R, gangster.
Uh-huh.
So, and I can't help but think that gun control's going down the same path.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And you know, one of the things that we've seen is the more laws you create, the harder it is for a true law-abiding citizen, or at least someone who wants to be a law-abiding citizen, to keep up with them.
Mm-hmm.
They recently had the hearing in front of Congress with the ATF director, what's his nuts, and one of the questions was, how is the average person supposed to navigate these ever-changing, constantly evolving, often misinterpreted?
Yeah. Have
rules?
you tried to go on the ATF website and see?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's unnavigable. Period. It is almost impossible to determine exactly what is and isn't permitted.
I've seen Chinese furniture instructions that were more clear.
Right? Right. Let's talk about that, because we have a couple of things here that we're going to pull up to discuss exactly why it's, or how it can be so confusing.
Well, let's do a preamble here before
before
you pull that up.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the National Firearms Act of whatever year it was, I don't remember exactly. But they determined, now, first of all, the National Firearms Act originally was going to ban pistols.
Yeah.
That was its whole
purpose. Right. So, yeah. So if they tell you we're not coming for your guns, they're full of it.
Yeah. That got, that got pulled out of the National Firearms Act because nobody was going for it.
Let's see here.
But they decided, machine guns, sawed-off shotguns, things of the like.
Originally enacted in 1934.
Yeah, 1934.
Yeah.
Oh, look, the Prohibition era.
Bingo. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner, Johnny. What do we have for him? More gun control.
So, there were certain things that were on the list, and they're still on the list, although I think shotguns are starting to get a pass because we're seeing shorter shot, the Shockwave,
right,
and the Remington TAC 12 or something like that. TAC 14, I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
they're
very shortened shotguns.
Right. The stubbies.
Underneath the previous length restriction that traditionally was enacted. But machine guns are still, and here's the distinction: machine guns aren't illegal.
Right. And that's key. That's what people kind of need to.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with this, it's actually, once again, murky waters that you have to muddle your way through.
It's not illegal.
Right.
Just like suppressors, or what they like to call silencers.
They're not silencers.
Yeah. The movies are wrong. There are no device that makes your gun go
right.
And it's certainly not the size of a Mentos, package.
Right.
So, forget what you saw in John Wick. Those aren't illegal.
Right.
But you have to register them.
Yeah.
And you have to pay a tax stamp.
Yep. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, the ATF insists they do not maintain a gun registry.
Except,
as they've admitted in front of Congress, yeah, they do.
Yeah, except for this ever-growing list of things, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Okay.
So, machine guns.
Right.
You can't just go buy a machine gun, take it home, and have a machine gun.
Yeah. I mean, unless you got a really good friend that, anyway. I'm kidding.
Forms and pay your money, and then
that's the key. Pay your money.
Pay your money, and then wait for them to get around to telling you it's okay.
Yeah.
So you're asking, once again, you're asking the government for permission to do what you want to do.
Right. Right. And of course, this adds to the ever-growing list of things you have to pay the government to do that you should be able to do as a natural-born citizen, period.
Right.
Yeah. But,
like make money, buy things,
survive,
own anything, live anywhere, eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I digress again.
No, I'm with you. So, okay.
Okay, so we've established the machine gun.
Right.
Okay, so what's a machine gun?
Yeah, that's a good question. What is a machine gun?
So a machine gun, fully automatic. What that means is you squeeze your trigger, and as long as you hold that trigger in, it keeps spitting bullets out the barrel.
Right. And you were in the Army for a period of time.
Yes.
You have used fully automatic weapons.
Yes.
In the Army.
Yes.
So you have more experience with full auto weapons than I do.
Yep.
So.
And they're fun. And they're fun.
They look fun. They look like a blast.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, the M16 in full auto is fun. The M60 is fun.
Yeah.
They're just fun.
Yeah.
I've melted the barrel on M60.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, man. I could easily see how that would be vastly entertaining.
But that's their definition of machine gun.
Right. Yeah. You hold the trigger.
As long as you hold the trigger, it just keeps spitting bullets out. Bop, 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 bop.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Now that we've got that out of the way.
Okay. So where does a 3-round burst fit into that?
3-round burst, I think that still falls under the
definition
of fully automatic.
Right, which is weird because it doesn't keep spitting out. It only spits out 3.
Okay, so what the ATF decided, what the National Firearms Act decided, was to be not fully automatic.
Okay.
Required 1 cycle of the trigger.
Okay. So pull the trigger, 1 bullet comes out. Then you have to pull the trigger again for another round.
1 cycle.
Okay.
So enter
the bump stock.
The bump stock.
The bump stock. Okay. Let's talk about the bump stock.
Enter the bump stock. Now, I've never used the bump stock.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked before about your derision for the bump stock.
Yeah. The idea of it seems silly to me.
Okay. but what is it?
So what the bump stock does, so you pull the trigger. Now you have the stock against your shoulder like you should for a stock.
Right.
You pull the trigger and the recoil from the rifle, forces the rifle back.
Okay.
Which pushes the stock forward because it's on a spring.
Okay. So it's basically just
and it basically moves the trigger back into your finger.
Okay. Okay.
So the trigger cycles and comes forward again, but that stock assists it back into your finger.
Okay. All right. The official definition from Wikipedia here says bump stocks or bump fire stocks are gun stocks that can be used to assist in bump firing. The act of using the recoil of a semi-automatic firearm to fire ammunition cartridges in rapid succession. A much better definition is the one that Jim just provided, because that's a whole lot of gibberish. But it basically comes down to spring assisted that pushes it back, and it causes you to be able to fire more without pulling the trigger a bunch of times.
Well,
right?
Technically,
you're still pulling the trigger.
Yeah, technically the trigger is cycling again.
Right. Because you're still pulling the trigger.
So, and when they came out, the ATF determined this does not make your rifle fully automatic.
Right.
Well, later they decided, wait, No, yeah, it does.
Right. And that's a good key point right there.
So they had to change their definition
Mhm.
from a single cycle to a single pull.
Okay.
So if you don't physically pull the trigger,
Right.
then not semi-automatic.
Right. Okay. So you have to physically pull the trigger for every round for it to consider it.
So they just decided to change the wording,
Yeah,
to fit
the circumstance.
their rule.
Yeah, and this yet another example of the government changing their mind and on the fly.
And that's the worst part of it is like when these devices come out, they have to submit them to the ATF to make sure that they fall within the guidelines of the National Firearm Act.
Right.
So they submit the schematics and all the tests and everything else.
Okay.
And somebody goes over it in the ATF and they go and they either go, yeah, you're good, or no, this violates.
Right.
They said it was good.
Yeah.
They said it was good. They made them, they marketed them, they sold them. And then, oh wait.
No, wait. Well, that's not what we meant. That's not what we meant.
And which incidentally, Trump signed an executive order banning bump stocks.
Right.
Which was overturned in a federal appeals court.
Yep.
And it's still
making its way through the appeals process.
It's still going through the system.
Right.
The inventors, the company that invented these,
yep,
have since halted sales.
Yeah, because how the hell are they going to sell them?
Yeah, because any day they could go, these are illegal, and then they're sitting on
a whole bunch of stuff,
a warehouse full of contraband.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, which is a whole other point, but
right.
So go
ahead. You want to talk more about?
Yeah, I was just going to say. Now this is from the ATF website, and again, because it's not nearly confusing enough. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, but as everyone knows, just ATF, right? Look at okay, this is just on bump stocks, which, as we know, are making their way.
Final rule, and that's as of 2019.
Right. The final rule clarifies that the definition of machine gun in the Gun Control Act (GCA) and National Firearms Act (NFA) includes bump stock type devices, i.e., devices that allow a semi-automatic firearm to shoot more than one shot with a single pull of the trigger by harnessing the recoil energy of the semi-automatic firearm to which it is affixed so that the trigger resets and continues firing without additional physical manipulation of the trigger by the shooter. Whoa.
Now, even though the later models of the bump stock, you have to hold it a certain way for it to function properly.
Right.
You have to give it constant pressure
in order for it to work.
In order for it to work, or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So you're still manipulating the firearm to get it to fire.
Right. It's not as simple as pulling and holding the trigger. It just isn't.
Yeah. So.
And there was a time, which we're not going to rehash, but there was a time when you were like, F a bump stock. They're garbage anyway. It doesn't matter. Who cares? You have since revised your position on that. And, period, shall not be infringed. We've given enough. We have compromised enough.
Now, that in and of itself, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's a novelty. It's a whatever. It's, you don't need that.
Right. Practical purposes.
So then the bump stock thing, technology is ever changing.
Of course.
Which brings us to force reset triggers.
Yeah. Which one do we want to start with?
Or otherwise known as FRT.
FRT. Should we start here or?
The FRT and the WOT.
Okay.
The wide open trigger.
Okay. So there's a force reset trigger, FRT, and a wide.
Yeah.
WOT.
WOT, which, as far as I can tell, there's not much difference other than the WOT is made of harder metal.
Oh, okay.
So it's more durable.
So a hardier, more durable version of the FRT.
Yeah,
At
that's
least
what
seems to
I've noticed.
You're not an
haven't-
expert. Yeah,
I'm not an expert.
Right.
I've
And
never
all this
used-
is for entertainment purposes
Yeah,
only.
I've never used a WOT. I don't know.
Right.
But from what I could determine, they seem lowest common denominator pretty much the same.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the FRT.
Okay, so the FRT. So what the FRT does.
There we go. First, this is an FRT right here, right?
Rare breed.
Rare breed triggers
Is
FRT
a very
15.
prominent one. There's
Okay.
one the Powered by Graves made one. You won't find it.
Okay, no, I was just looking. This is if you care, frttrigger.com. And it's for a trigger, $339.99.
Yeah, which I mean, to be honest, a good competition trigger
Yeah.
will probably run you close to that.
Oh, okay, fair.
You know, you.
I don't really know that
I've
much
seen,
about.
I've seen high end regular triggers that were more expensive than that.
Oh, okay. And is this
But we're
a
talking-
quality FRT or is this just?
I mean,
there's
there's not a whole lot of FRTs out there.
Well, first of all, let's talk about FRT and what it is.
Okay. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So before the FRT came out, there was what was called the binary trigger.
Okay.
Franklin Armory made the binary trigger.
Okay.
So what the binary trigger does is when you pull the trigger,
Yep.
fires a round.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
And then when you release the trigger, it fires another round.
That sounds dope.
I mean, I've not used one personally.
Yeah.
I have friends who have them,
Yeah.
and they say they're a blast.
It sounds fun.
If you can
Yeah.
find that rhythm, you can put some serious rounds down range.
Okay. All right.
Because you're basically getting 2 for 1.
Right. Right.
Okay, now the difference between a binary trigger and an FRT. So an FRT, you pull the trigger, and the cycling of the bolt carrier group
Yep.
forces the trigger to reset.
Okay. Hence the name force reset trigger. Okay.
Yeah. So, when you push, you pull the trigger.
Yep.
Goes bang.
Yep. Cycles.
And it cycles before a regular trigger normally would.
Okay. Okay.
So, if we're being completely honest,
Yeah.
you find that sweet spot for your finger position,
Uh-huh.
and the cycling of the bolt carrier group
Yeah.
will basically just keep smacking the trigger into your finger.
Okay. You gotta find that particular spot, and
Mhm.
then it's pretty much like a full auto.
It
Just shy.
Yeah, it is. It's similar.
Similar. Okay.
In
Do you think the firing speed is anywhere close?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I'm speaking from the AR-15 perspective.
Okay.
Your rate of fire will largely be determined by the weight of your buffer.
All right.
So, and they'll even tell you when you put in an FRT, put in a heavier buffer.
A heavier buffer. Okay. All right.
For it to cycle properly.
Okay.
So the lighter the buffer, the faster that thing's going to
cycle.
Okay.
So
because
like
there's not as much keeping the bolt carrier group from going back.
Right. And if you find that sweet spot, it's really a kind of deal. Okay. All right. So the ATF said no on these.
Once again, they came out, they
Uh-huh.
submitted to the ATF.
Yep.
The ATF said, no, yeah.
Right. This does not meet the definition of a machine gun.
As a matter of fact, I don't know about the rare breed, but the Powered by Graves version came with a small copy of the ATF letter.
Okay.
Stating that force reset triggers did not fall under the
machine gun rule.
Right. For the National Firearms Act.
Yeah. In other words, it was, quote, legal and permitted.
It was fine.
Right. Until
later.
Yeah. some indeterminate period where they went, nah.
Yeah, they went, you know what?
That's way too much fun. We can't have that.
Right. And, you know, people are making money, not us.
Right, right. And, you know, I just want to say this, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are like, well, that shouldn't be a thing or whatever, bear in mind that with enough money, you can own all the machine guns you want.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is pre-1985, anything made before 1985 that's full auto.
Through the convoluted
1980s, I know that. But if it's prior to the 1980s, that's okay. They're like $35,000 and up minimum, bare minimum for a rusted hunk of garbage. You're talking,
and then you have to get your tax stamp.
Yeah, then you anything newer than that, you have to get each one. Yeah, which is like $200 for
something like that.
Either way, the short version is if you're poor, you know, as Elon Musk would say, GFY, right, or get bent. If you're rich, just give us money and you can do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Yeah. So FRTs.
Yeah, so we got the FRTs.
Yep.
You know, like I said, technology is always advancing.
Right.
Now, if you want to get real spicy, and these are unequivocally illegal, you can get an auto sear.
An auto sear?
Yeah, an auto sear.
Like SEAR, SEER, or
SEAR, I believe.
SEAR, auto sear. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they can be 3D printed.
Okay.
I believe I sent you a link to an article about them.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. Somebody was selling them as wall hangers.
Let's bring these up. Okay.
Yeah, someone was selling them as wall hangers.
Okay.
But if you take that little black piece off with the screw.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at a red piece of plastic here with a little black piece of plastic and a screw.
Yeah, you take that black piece off.
Yep.
You have an auto sear.
Okay.
And you just drop that in your AR-15. And I'm not 100% on how that works.
Yeah, same.
But basically it bypasses the reset.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how they work, but basically you drop that in, it turns it into a full auto.
Okay. All right. Let's see here.
That's just it doesn't go into the too many particulars about the device and how it works. Just, you know, somebody who was selling it.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't. I was looking to see.
But if you go back up,
but it doesn't,
you could see how they market it as a
wall hanger.
You know, kind of like those solvent catchers.
Yeah. Okay.
You know. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure people have seen those on Facebook or whatever. Anybody who's like, so what it is you'll have a container, you know, a cylinder with baffles in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And a thread.
A thread,
which just happens to be the same thread pitch as the end of the barrel of, you know, your favorite rifles.
Right.
And all it takes is basically one drill hole and you have a suppressor.
Right. But it's for you know, liquids and
that's what it's marketed as.
That's what it's marketed as. Yeah.
Definitely not a suppressor.
Right. Of course not. Absolutely not. Look, the really, and just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you're listening to this, the name of this article that we're talking about right now is 3D printed AR-15 part linked to extreme right Boogaloo group.
Yeah, I don't know who
Boogaloos are, but either way, is that like a juggalo? I wonder.
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. I was just
not really up on keep in mind all these pictures and articles and whatnot are for educational purposes.
Right.
Not advocating anything. It's not a tutorial.
No, most certainly not. I offer private lessons in that regard. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't even have a 3D printer.
Right. Me either. Although I do want one, though not for that.
And interestingly enough,
definitely not.
I did not use Google in my research.
Okay.
I used a different search engine.
Yep.
And when I was looking for information about that auto sear,
Right.
the first thing that came up was a plethora of programs for 3D printing gun parts.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
this right there should tell you just
it's not working.
the absolute futility of trying to make more laws and more rules and more regulations.
Right. Right.
You know, love finds a way.
We're not only that. So there's still, in my, at least to the best of my knowledge, there is still a lawsuit making its way through the court system regarding 3D printed firearms in almost their entirety, right? Or has it been concluded?
I'm sure it hasn't. I mean, there are groups that are dedicated to 3D printed firearms, like just as a hobby,
Right.
not illegal firearms, not machine guns,
Right.
just, you know, can I make an accurate, you know, firearm
Right.
that functions well and reliably
Mhm.
and accurately?
Right.
And these, you know, these people will, you know, build their firearms,
Yeah.
you know, from scratch.
Yeah.
They will get together in a
Mhm.
group setting at a firing range, and they will compete,
Yeah.
to see
what
who,
works, what doesn't.
who's you know, homemade fucking firearm,
Mhm.
you know, works best.
Right. Which one lasts the longest
Mhm.
before it melts? Because it's all like molded 3D
Yeah.
printed plastic.
Yeah,
right?
but you know, the materials that 3D printers can crank out now are
pretty
pretty
wild.
durable.
Yeah, it's really crazy how far that's come
Yeah.
just since the
And that's what's making the government nervous.
oh yeah.
And it's not it's not as well-meaning as you would think.
Okay.
You know, it's not like, oh, we're worried about, you know, people getting shot and
Mhm.
criminals this and criminals that. I'm sure there's a component to that, but more
Sure.
importantly, it's something they can't control.
I think that's the real key right there.
And that's where the root of it is.
Yeah.
Is,
Yeah.
oh, we can't track everybody who has a firearm.
Right. Right. So that brings me to another point before we move on to the next little thing here. I think whenever we talk about safety versus freedom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more freedom you have, the less safe an environment potentially can become.
Right.
And, you know, there's I believe a Benjamin Franklin quote to almost that exact reference. Those who trade safety, you know, freedom for safety or whatever.
Well, no, it's actually those who surrender freedom for a bit of temporary security.
Yep.
Will end up with neither.
Yep. Okay.
So let's even take the freedom part out
Yep.
of it for a second.
All
Just
right.
for a second. We'll just set that over here.
Set it to the side.
Let's talk about the safety thing.
Okay.
Because I work in a manufacturing setting.
Yeah.
And there seems to be lately this push
Okay.
to make everything more safe, more safe,
Okay.
more safe, more safe.
Isn't safe good?
Well, yes, safe is good,
Okay.
but you're treating everyone like they're a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know,
we have to tell people not to drink shampoo.
We're not far from. Oh, I mean, and we're actually to the part of, you know, essentially baby gates
Oh yeah.
in the factory I work at.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're just, you know, you have to pull this gate, you know, so you can't just walk out in front of a forklift, because who can see a 14-ton green, you know, powered industrial vehicle that's not exactly quiet.
They're not. Even the natural gas or the
You know,
propane.
Oh, and let's not forget, we put blue and red lights on it, so you
Right.
can see, you know that it's coming towards you. That you know how far you can be from the side of it and not get your foot run over.
Yeah, there's tape on the floor, and
I mean, it's getting to the point of idiocracy.
right.
You know,
Right.
we're basically we're taking the human component out of safety.
Right.
We're taking situational awareness out of safety. We're taking sense out of safety.
A lot of people
we
would
put
argue,
so much guarding and fencing and everything up that like you can't even get to anything.
Yeah.
Like you're essentially not even working anymore.
A lot of people would argue that what's referred to as Darwinism has not been allowed to run its course. And had it been allowed to run its course, we would have fewer problems.
Yeah, I joke a lot about that,
Yeah.
about natural selection and
Yep.
things like that. But there's a balance.
Sure.
There's a balance. There's definitely things. You don't want it to be like, the old days where, people were, doing inherently unsafe things,
Right.
machines that like, if you sneeze wrong, you'll fall into it and it'll chop you into a million pieces.
Right. There is definitely a balance to
But there comes a point where like you gotta let people think.
Right. Well,
and
yeah.
We're not letting people think.
So playing devil's advocate for a moment, right?
Mhm.
Aren't there people who should be protected, and aren't there people who should be able to feel safe from potential armed attackers, because everyone with a firearm is a potential attacker?
Well, here's let me hit you right there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what you said was, shouldn't you feel safe?
Okay.
Well, feelings are very subjective.
True.
Feelings, just that, a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Should people be safe from attackers? Yeah. I mean, and you can do so much to that end.
Right.
But as far as feeling, there are people now that don't feel safe in their own homes. They don't feel safe if there's another person in the room. It doesn't matter who they are.
True.
There are people that feel anxious all the time.
True.
There are people who feel sad all the time.
So shouldn't you have to disarm yourself so they feel safe?
How does that make them safer?
Because then you don't have the ability to inflict as much damage on them. Because
Nor do I have the ability to protect them.
Can we agree? And again, I feel like I have to say this a lot because, we might have a new viewer or whatever, but I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't you have to conform?
Absolutely. Let me stop you right there. No, let me stop you right there. It doesn't matter what you say after that.
Okay.
You hit the key word, and the answer is a resounding no.
Okay. So you feel it's up to every individual to basically be responsible for their own safety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
When you rely on people to do everything for you, what are you doing?
Okay. But what about the children? I mean,
are you serious right now?
Okay, just briefly, right? So there are these weapons, right, that can potentially inflict mass casualties in a quote short amount of time. Okay. Now, obviously, the media and the far left gets it wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's all this terror instilled in the populace for the scary black rifle that is, commonly known as the AR-15. Is that, first of all, you have personal direct experience with real military grade hardware.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, is the AR-15 a military grade rifle?
Okay, let's talk about the AR-15. The AR-15 was not invented as a military weapon.
But doesn't the AR stand for assault rifle?
No, it doesn't.
I know. Armalite rifle model
15.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which was originally a civilian rifle.
Correct.
It was bought by Colt,
mm-hmm.
and then licensed to the military with some modifications.
Such as the ability to select fire.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, the ability to go full auto.
Yep.
So, first of all, it wasn't originally a military weapon to begin with.
Right.
And the AR-15 that you can go to your local gun store and buy
Yeah.
is not the same. There are a lot of similarities,
Sure.
but it's not the same as what they issue to soldiers.
Right. Right. So is this weapon capable of inflicting more casualties than, you know, what akimbo pistols or a shotgun or any of the other traditional?
I mean, that goes into a lot of nuances.
Okay.
It goes into a lot of nuances.
Right.
The funny thing is, nobody says anything about a wood stuff like the Mini 14.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Mini
The
14.
Mini 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same caliber
Okay.
as the AR-15.
All right.
Fires
The same.
at the same rate
The same rate. Right.
as the AR-15.
Okay.
Wood stock, no pistol grip.
Okay.
You make a rifle black polymer, put a pistol grip on it
Yep.
for better control.
Yep.
We'll get, let's remember that term.
Okay.
Better control.
Better control. Right.
And a stock that adjusts to the length of the shooter, because not everybody has the same length of arms.
Right.
It's what they call a length of pull.
Right.
And all of a sudden, oh, it's a scary assault rifle. We don't need those.
Right.
We never talk about the Mini 14.
Right.
It's just an innocuous hunting rifle,
Yeah. Yeah.
which we're not trying to take away from you
Right. Yet. Yeah.
That's
Again,
the only difference.
yeah.
Cosmetics, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, and control, better control
Mm-hmm.
because of the pistol grip.
Yeah. Which, when you're talking about firearms, the more control you have over that, the safer it's going to be.
Right. But
Inherently.
Right. But
Now, as far as like inflicting mass casualties in a short period of time,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what weapon you're using
Mhm.
for that purpose.
Molotov cocktails can
If
do
you're
that.
using that tool for that purpose, there's not a law in the world that's going to prevent that.
Right. And I think that's the key. Oh, there's not a law, right? But the control freaks or the pro gun control lobby, right, seem to believe that if we have enough laws, if we can just ban all these things and say you as Americans are not allowed to have this, then we can prevent.
If
some horrible
only
things.
we could come up with some sort of law banning illegal drugs.
Right?
If we had a law that made heroin illegal
Yeah.
and meth illegal and cocaine illegal
Yeah, and fentanyl,
and
which is
fentanyl
responsible
and
for
whatever
many
that new
deaths.
one coming out is.
Oh yeah, the zombie drug or whatever it is.
It's another horse tranquilizer that they're mixing with
Yeah.
street drugs.
Yeah.
If only we had a law, and then we wouldn't have any drug problems anymore.
Right. I
Bullshit.
get what you're saying.
It didn't work then. It's not going to work on the guns. It doesn't work for anything. There is not enough legislation in the world.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to. Is,
More legislation isn't about safety.
Yeah.
In this context, legislation in this context is about control.
Yeah. And bear in mind that the only thing laws affect, or I should say the only people more laws affect, are law-abiding citizens because they're trying to stay within the law.
Yeah.
Which brings us back.
Poor.
What's that?
Poor.
Yeah, well, the poor law-abiding people, because again, as stated earlier in the show, with enough money, none of this shit matters.
Yeah.
None of it matters. You can go hire a lawyer
these things only apply to the unwashed peasants.
Of course. So back to these ever-changing rules, regulations, and the morass of paperwork that you have to go through to figure out what you can and can't do.
Yeah, one more example.
the stabilizing braces.
Mhm.
And this is, again, from
Also known as the pistol brace.
the pistol brace. This is from the ATF website. And it says, factoring criteria for firearms with attached stabilizing braces.
Okay, so let me run down the stabilizing
Yeah.
brace real quick. Okay, so the stabilizing brace was invented by, I believe, by a veteran, disabled veteran,
Disabled veteran. That's the key. Yep.
so that he could fire like an AR-15, for example,
Right.
without the use of the arm he didn't have anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So what the stabilizing brace does is it attaches the weapon to your forearm,
Yep.
stabilizing it within one hand.
Right. So you don't need to have the
So
other.
you don't need to stabilize it with your offhand.
Correct.
ATF said those were fine.
Those were fine initially.
Now
Yep.
this is the best one.
Okay.
So ATF said these were fine.
Yep.
Well, then they came out with the kind, they changed the design over a period of time,
Okay.
and they look remarkably like stocks.
Uh-huh.
You could put that to your shoulder
Uh-huh.
and use it like a stock.
Okay.
Now, the ATF knew that.
Right.
They looked at it and they went, and they thought about it and they decided, well, yeah, you could use it like that, but that's not what it's made for.
Okay.
Now, if you put it to your shoulder, well, then that's you.
Right.
But what they're designed for
Yeah.
is to stabilize to your forearm.
Yeah. To strap
So
to
they're
your arm.
perfectly fine. We understand that some people could put that against their shoulder,
Potentially use it. Yeah.
but they're designed for what you said they're designed for, so they're okay.
Right. Right. Again.
And then here, very recently,
Uh-huh.
they did a 180 and went, no.
Right. Suddenly, it's not okay.
Yeah, if you can put that to your shoulder, that's not a brace.
Right.
That's a stock.
That's a stock.
And if you have it on a weapon shorter than 16 inches,
Yep.
pistol length, as it were,
Uh-huh.
it's now a short barrel rifle,
Okay.
which is against the National Firearms Act.
So let me, real quick, why? Why does the length of the barrel matter?
Okay, so here's why. This is why they originally banned sawed-off shotguns.
Okay.
Because back in the Prohibition era,
Mm-hmm.
they would saw off these shotguns, they would saw off rifles, they would make them very small
Okay.
and easy to conceal within their jackets.
Okay. Okay.
So you've got all the advantages of a rifle
Right.
in a compact package,
Okay.
and they didn't like that.
Ah, okay. Okay. So is there an inherent danger in a short barreled rifle? Like, is it, other than concealability, like, is it more, or I should say, is it less accurate the shorter the barrel?
So the biggest difference when you're talking about the shorter barrels in a rifle round, say the 223 Remington
Yep.
/5.56 NATO.
Okay.
So the shorter the barrel,
Mm-hmm.
the less velocity you have coming out of the barrel.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
You're losing velocity, which is where your terminal performance comes from.
Okay.
Okay. So when you get down to like 7.5 inches
Mm-hmm.
shorter, I've seen ARs in 5-inch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which is pointless. Like legitimately, it's pointless.
Is it?
You,
Okay.
you cannot reliably use that, because let's be realistic, firearms are terminal.
Well, yeah,
they're-
that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All that stuff you see in movies and TV where like, shoot them in the leg or wing them or shoot the gun out of their hand
Right.
or
That's
all
garbage.
that trick shot bullshit.
Yeah.
That's fairy tale stuff.
Right.
When you're using a firearm,
Mhm.
your life is on the line,
Right.
and unfortunately, you're going to have to end their life to stop them from ending yours.
Right. Right. And that's generally the accepted.
That's the dark, cold reality of
Right.
it.
Right. And
And when you get into these shorter barrels,
mhm, the
you're-
power's just not.
yeah,
there.
it's just not there because the speed is going to give you the power.
Right. Okay. So looking at this, looking at the the brace, right? Or the
Mhm.
pistol brace. Like you said, it started out with, okay, this is fine. Then all of a sudden it's not. And let's see here. So it looks like it was fine on January 13th, signed. The Attorney General signed ATF Final Rule 2021R-08F, blah, 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 amending ATF's regulations to clarify when a rifle is designed, made, and intended to be fired from the shoulder. The final rule was published in the Federal Register on January 31st, 2023. The rule outlines the factors ATF would consider when evaluating firearms equipped with a purported stabilizing brace, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Again, it's this big, long jumble of words,
Yeah.
and good luck finding the answer to something.
And when you dig down into the meat of that,
Mhm.
it's actually very simple. If you can put it to your shoulder,
Mhm. It's banned.
yeah, it's banned.
It's prohibited.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have a stick with a strap on it, you're cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I guess here's the weird part, right? But rifles with stocks are fine.
well, even those stabilizing braces are fine if your
If it's
rifle is over 16 inches.
not, okay. So it's only if your rifle is under 16 inches.
Right. Which, if you
Damn
try to
genetics.
fire a 16-inch rifle
Yeah.
one-handed, you're in for a bad time.
Okay. Okay.
Just due to physics.
yeah.
You've got a lot of weight extending from your
Yeah.
stable point.
Way out.
And the
right.
further, you take a 2x4. 2x4 gets long enough, it sags.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you can't hold that steady.
Okay.
The longer it gets to hold, the harder it's going to be to hold steady.
So it really makes the brace pointless.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because by the time you are able to adhere to the regulations of
Mhm.
it, it's unwieldy and defeats the purpose for which it was designed,
Right.
which was designed again by a disabled veteran to allow
Mhm.
him to fire the weapon, to enjoy firing a rifle,
Mhm.
which he's unable to do because he lost a
Yeah.
limb. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. So we're up against it. Short version here. The ATF has gone way above and beyond anything that I believe that it was ever designed for, at least by the people who
So,
said, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
What we're doing, in my opinion, what we're doing here with the ATF is they're wasting time.
Okay.
They're wasting resources.
Yep.
And it's just another, goose stepping,
Unfortunately, yeah.
control agency.
Yeah. So if the only options were ATF, no ATF, come what may, you vote no ATF.
Lose them.
Okay. All right. If you agree or disagree, ladies and gentlemen, drop it in the comments. Next week, not sure what we're going to talk about. We haven't discussed it yet, but you can always count on it to be entertaining. At least it is to me. I hope you'll join us again. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Tonight on Dion's Daily Dose, we have Joseph Bortka for the Republican convention in Indiana, which is coming up this weekend. As a matter of fact, Saturday we vote. He's going to have some resolutions that will fundamentally alter the Republican Party, at least in Indiana. And you should tune in, even if you're not a delegate. It may have some serious changes to the party, at least here in Indiana, because there are many, many, many people who feel politically lost, who feel like they don't have a place. Check it out, 7 p.m. Central tonight. He has a lot more time. We had a brief episode with him earlier, but tonight he's going to have more time to answer some questions. We're going to dig into these resolutions and talk about what they mean. But other than that, we'll see you next week. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America.
Amen.
Have a great day.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.